Hello, hello, everyone. I see some familiar faces. Looks like we have a good group today. Just so all the participants know, I was creeping on the attendee registrant earlier today, and we have a great mix of alumni, students, friends of AFA who are serving in different industry roles. We're going to have a really great discussion. So happy you all are here.
Kelsey, you want to go ahead and roll, or do you want to give it another minute and see if anybody else jumps on?
I'll just keep managing the participant side and admitting them.
Yep.
I say go. Let's do it.
All right. Well, hello, everyone. My name's Clayton Michael Buller. For those of you that I do not know, I am the chair of NAC, which is the National AFA Alliance Advisory Council. So we get to work very closely with the board and most importantly, Miss Susanne, who is our guest speaker for today. And we're very excited to have her. So she is in a fairly new role with AFA as one of our ambassadors. And so she has spent her career with Corteva and has recently retired. And now she's supporting the mission of AFA by helping us connect throughout the agricultural industry within not just our partners, but also with students and prospective partners. So we're really excited to have her, and she's got a awesome experience for us lined up today. And she is going to do a fantastic job of kicking off our first inaugural Lunch and Learn. So very excited about it. So Susanne, I will pass it over to you to get us started.
Well, thank you very much. And it's a pleasure to be here with all of you today. And the topic that I have to discuss is around networking. And I think it's very interesting in terms of what people think about networking. Is it worthwhile? What does it do for me? And I thought I would really kick off the discussion just giving you a definition that I looked up of networking, which is that networking is an action or a process of interacting with others to exchange information and develop professional or social contacts. So what does that really mean to me? Well, I'll tell you, I have a couple of personal examples that I'll give you from my parents. And when I was younger in high school, I had the opportunity to go to the State Fair of Texas to a cattle show with my dad and skip school for a couple of days. And as we were walking through the cattle barn, I kept just seeing my dad say hello and, connecting with all of these people. And, I said, Dad, how do you know all these people? And, his words to me were, because I took time to get to know them. And that's always stuck with me in terms of, we're walking up and down the aisles and here he is. All these people are saying, hello, Bob, how are you doing? And it's because he said he took the time to get to know them. Another opportunity I had from my mom when I first moved to Indianapolis out of college, I didn't really know anybody other than the few people that I'd interviewed with at the time it was Dow Elanco. And she said, well, you're going to join PEO, which is a philanthropic education organization for women that both my grandmothers, my mom, my aunt had been in. And I wasn't so sure I wanted to do that, but she contacted some local chapters, had me visit and even came for my initiation into that organization. And, overnight I had, 30 women friends that I'd never met before in Indy. And it made a difference in terms of, me getting to know people in the community, moving, all the way from College Station, Texas to Indianapolis when I first started working. So, those are a couple of early networking ideas that really, kind of, piqued my interest in how do I build this network as I start my career. And I think that, my experiences have been very positive in terms of using networking. And I think you need to look at it from both your personal development, what you want to do professionally, as you take on networking opportunities, because I think it can lead to success, and only you define success for your career, but it's something I think that is quite important. So I'd like to really focus on 3 different areas of networking. So networking within your company, and then networking within the industry, and finally networking within your community. So we'll start with the company. And, I think like many people, when I first started working, I knew the people in my work group. So I started at Dow Elanco 33 years ago as an accountant in our research and development group. So, I knew the people in finance, but I didn't really know anyone else. And when I had the opportunity to look at the next job, I ended up taking a job in North America finance. And so I started meeting commercial people. I kind of decided that I didn't really want to be an accountant after a few years, and was really looking for that next opportunity. And, started talking to my boss about how do I even get that opportunity to do something different. And I was thinking about sales. And believe me, it's a hard sell to get an accountant a sales job. So anyway, and I was told no quite a few times as I started trying to find something different to do, because I really liked the company, but I wasn't so sure I wanted to be an accountant. And I got told no a lot in terms of no opportunities right now, but I kept up with it. And I think because I knew people in R&D, and I had the opportunity to meet a lot of commercial people in my finance role, I kept at it and eventually got a sales opportunity. And that was great for me because I absolutely love sales and spent, most of the rest of my career in sales, marketing, sales and marketing management, global product management with the company that is Corteva Agriscience today. So, building that network at an early age was important to me to really be able to get to the role that I wanted to. And I think, a challenge is many folks, when they first start out, they really don't know what they want to do, because I didn't. I thought I knew, but I didn't. And I think it's important that as you build a network, you also start to understand the opportunities that are available for you in your company. And as I progressed in my career, I decided that I was very interested in global product management. And at the time, you needed to have a cross-functional experience, which for me, I was lucky since I started in finance and then moved into sales and marketing. I had a cross-functional experience, but you also needed to have an expat assignment. So, talking with my supervisor, I said, this is something I really want. How do I go about getting on the list? And it wasn't something that you just say, well, I'd like to do that, and you get to do that. You have to demonstrate your capabilities. But I was, very interested in doing that. And I think, when I finally got my expat assignment, I was 12 years into the company. And, a big learning for me was actually being able to articulate where I wanted to see myself 5 or 10 years in the future. And so when I had conversations with people that I'd known, that I had, been able to network with throughout the jobs that I had, I said, this is a role that I aspire to, and I know that I need an expat assignment if I'm going to even, get a shot at doing that global product management job. So having that opportunity was fabulous. And, I would recommend an expat assignment for anyone who has an aspiration to live outside of the United States and learn about different cultures and how work is done. It really was a great eye-opening experience. But, being able to articulate to people what I wanted to do and why I was asking for this assignment was really important, because I think it's really hard, especially when you're younger in your career, to articulate where you see yourself 5 or 10 years down the road. But you really need to be able to do that. I think it's especially hard for females sometimes to be able to say, what they want to do, and to be confident in their capabilities to say, I know that if I get these experiences, I'll be able to compete for those jobs. And many times I know myself early in my career, I would, see someone get a role and I would say, I wonder how they got that opportunity. And, as I progressed, I could see one, they knew people. Typically, they were very well connected within the company. And the other was they actually asked for those opportunities. And I think sometimes that's very hard to do. But if you see an opportunity, a lot of times it's not that you didn't compete for it, it's that you're not even considered for it. And you're not considered because either, people don't know that you want the role or they don't know who you are. So that's one reason why networking is so important. One, to make sure people know who you are and know your capabilities, but also know your aspirations and what you would like to do. So I think that's incredibly important as you're trying to build your career and figuring out exactly where you want to go. The next area that I would like to just talk about a bit is the industry that you work in. And the industry can be broad, such as the entire agriculture industry, or it can be specific if you work in crop protection or you work in seed or you work in machinery or wherever it may be, animal health in ag. There's so many different segments that you can participate in. And I think one thing that I always recommend is there's only so many hours in the day. So if you make a decision that you want to start to engage in your industry broadly, more outside of your company, make sure that it's something that you're very interested in or passionate about. You want to start to engage in something. It's not really a resume building exercise. It's because you can either learn something from it or because you can contribute and make a difference in your industry going forward. So the first opportunity that I got was to be on the Strategic Oversight Council for our industry association in crop protection, which was CropLife America. And my supervisor at the time thought that would be a very good development opportunity for me. And I was interested in learning about policy. And how do we advocate for our products? The crop protection business in ag is highly regulated, so I was very interested in how do we engage with EPA to get our products to market. And so by being the representative for Dow AgroSciences at the time on the Strategic Oversight Council, I got to really understand how we work as an industry with EPA and with Congress to advocate for getting our products, to farmers, which are our customers. So that was something that I was interested in. I was willing to spend the time and engage in that, which was, a committee. And when the time came when our previous board member retired, I got to be on the board of CropLife America. So I think if there's an opportunity to start with a committee or a project in an organization, that's certainly a way to start to get engaged as well. Another area that I was very passionate about was leadership development, and AFA certainly has a huge role to play in leadership development. But at the time, I was engaged with the National FFA and got the opportunity to be on the National FFA Sponsors Board representing Dow AgroSciences at the time. And once again, it was something that I was passionate about, and had the opportunity to engage, way beyond the crop protection business, but in ag on the large scale, which was fun and different and helped me to really develop my network of people outside of just the small industry of crop protection that I worked in and day out. So as well, I had the opportunity to be on the board of Agronovus Indiana, which is an organization in the state of Indiana, which is promoting the ag biosciences for the state and seeing how we can bring new companies, whether it's startups or other companies, to the state. Interestingly, so a person who was on the FFA board became the CEO of that organization, and then asked me to join that board when the previous Dow AgroSciences person retired. So once again, networking can make a big difference in how you can engage in the industry and make an impact, as well as continue to build your network going forward. So the third area that I would like to talk about is community. And I told you earlier about the opportunity that I had when my mom, volunteered me to be in the PEO organization, which was great. But I think another area that is easy, especially for people that are just coming out of college, if you were in an organization in college, a lot of times those organizations will have an alumni chapter. So whether that's your university, if it's a sorority or fraternity, if it's any kind of other organization, many times they have alumni chapters, not unlike AFA and the Alliance. So I think that's a very easy way to start kind of engaging from a community perspective and keeping ties to the network that you built before you started working as well. Once again, I think it is important that you focus on something that you're passionate about and that you're very interested in. And I talked to my supervisor at one point to say, I don't have that much from a community perspective. What would you recommend? And he happened to know the CEO of the Indiana Humanities. Now, when he introduced me to her, I was like, I don't even know what the humanities are really. And obviously working in Corteva, I had a very strong STEM background in science. And when I was talking to the CEO, she said, well, the humanities is all about thinking, reading, and talking. And, I love to read. And I thought, well, this could be a very interesting opportunity for me. And when I joined that board, I met, such a different group of leaders from what I was used to dealing with in ag and industry and in Corteva. There were, university professors, there were legislators, there were judges, very, very different nonprofit leaders, but a very different group of people. So once again, it was really helping me kind of connect in the greater Indianapolis area with a new group of people that were just fantastic and really broadened my horizons in terms of the kind of people that were great leaders in the state and in the city that I hadn't had the opportunity to get to interact with before. So that was once again a great opportunity, and I think I've had the opportunity to interact at many different levels, and I take a lot of that back to networking. And so if we fast forward a bit then to where I am today, I retired from Corteva about a year ago, and today I'm sitting on 3 boards of small companies that are owned by private equity. And all of those opportunities came about because someone associated with that company or with private equity knew me, and I had a connection with them. So as I start kind of my post-corporate career and I'm continuing to be an advocate for agriculture, the networking has just come in very handy in terms of, I knew I wanted to do something after retirement, and the board service has been exciting and fun. So I think that every person is got to make their own decisions in terms of how much they allocate to focusing on networking, especially outside of your day-to-day job and in your community. But I will tell you, at least from my experience, it's all been incredibly rewarding going forward. So I think we have a few minutes where we could take some questions. Nick, you said we may have some questions?
Yeah, we have a lot of questions, Suzanne, and
Okay.
AFA alums, don't forget, you can pop those questions or anything that resonated with you that you heard from Suzanne in the chat, and Clayton Michael Butler and I will be sure to be able to get to those questions before we go into our breakout rooms today. We did have one question. I'm just scrolling through it. So, question from Chels: how have you been able to explore where you want to be in 10 years? Planning in this area is tough for me. Any sort of resources you can share?
Mhm. Well, for me, I stayed with the same company basically, even though it merged and changed a little bit for 32 years. So, and when people ask me, why did you stay with the same company all that time? And I said, one, I really liked what I was doing, but two, I love the people that I worked with. So those have always been, key things for me. But as well, I think, as you try to vision where you want to be, because the first, I'll call it 10 years of my career, I was just putting my head down and working hard and hoping that somebody noticed. And I was told multiple times, you need to be able to articulate what you want to do. And I wasn't sure. So I started talking to people, I knew I liked the business side of things. So I interacted with some global project leaders and some global business leaders. And I said, what do you do on a day-to-day basis? And, what do you like about it and what's challenging about it? And that's really when it piqued my interest to think, oh, I'd love to do a global business leader job. And so then I started, investigating, well, what's the qualifications to be able to do that? And as I mentioned, one was the expat assignment. So I started thinking about how could I do that? What would be, something that I would learn? And I wanted to do something overseas that I could interact with a customer. And so started talking to different people about would there be an opportunity. And I was the sales manager for the UK and Ireland for Dow for about 3 years and love that opportunity. But it's hard to know. I worked in a fairly good sized company where there were a lot of opportunities, and your supervisor is always a great place to start. The other thing is a mentor. And I really didn't talk a lot about mentors, but having someone that you can have these kind of conversations with where you can bare your soul and be frank and honest about, I don't know what I want to do, and I'm not sure I have these capabilities, but here's what I'm interested in. I think having a mentor or someone that you can talk to about that are really critical.
Great feedback, Susanne. Oh, go for it, Clayton.
Okay. So just not to steal Nick's spotlight, but so another question that we have is around networking and industry events. I think it's a really good question, and I could definitely relate to it. So do you have any recommendations on how to connect with others who are not very aware of your employer? So for example, she works at a small firm with only 6 people, and normally she's the only representative from her team that go to those networking events. And sometimes at these events, it's challenging because there's not a lot of name recognition with my firm compared to the larger ag businesses, which leads to some of that instant connection that you would typically get like from a Syngenta and a Corteva or something like that. So what tips, advice do you have around that?
Well, what I would say, those events, it's interesting. And it was something that we did in Dow with new sales trainees. We would have kind of a networking event with them when we were going through their sales training. And I got to attend, so I got to see it firsthand. And what we all do when we go into a networking event where you may have finger food and you may have cocktails is you go and immediately and find someone and then you go and get a drink and get a plate. Okay, so how are you going to meet someone and shake their hand if both your hands are full and you're just with the people you know? So, we were taught that when you get there, before you get the drink, before you get the food, you find 3 people that you don't know and you introduce yourself. And I think a lot of times the way to do that when you don't know anyone in the room is, to say, this is my first time here, or, I'm representing a small company and it would be great if I could, meet people. So I want to introduce myself and who I am. And, people in ag are great. That's what I'll say. I mean, they're very welcoming, but you have to make the initiative and the effort to introduce yourself, because it's also a small industry where everybody knows everybody. So we tend to kind of, flock to the people that we know, which is, not always good. So if you can make that effort right when you go to one of those networking events and have that as a goal, meet 3 people that you don't know, and get an opportunity that way, you'll start to build a network. So even if you are with a small company, you'll still begin, to have a presence there. And I would say, there's some very small companies in Crop Life America that the leaders are extremely well known. And it's because of how they've networked with people in the industry. Guys,
Awesome.
maybe one more quick question before we go to breakout.
Perfect. I'll let Clayton Michael Butler or Nick pick the next question.
Okay, so lucky I get to go twice. Okay, so when talking about aspirations for your career, how do you communicate those with your supervisor without giving the impression that you're going to jump ship? I mean, obviously, some managers make it super easy, some managers make it a little bit more complicated. So, how do you typically approach that, and how do you recommend employees approach that with their mentor and their leader?
I would say with your leader is you can have a conversation anytime about your performance, right? But when you want to have a career discussion, I would make sure that you plan that time with your leader and make your leader know that that's what you want to talk about. And, when you get there, you can start off by saying, look, I'm very happy with my job. If you're not, I think I would be honest. I think it's always best to be honest and truthful, but I feel like I need to do planning, or I don't know what's next, or I don't know how, the career ladder works here if you're new, and say, I would like to do some career planning. And I think when you're upfront to say, this isn't about, I need a new job tomorrow. This is about, I want to plan for my future. That, gives you kind of a blank slate to then work through, with your supervisor. And, as you mentioned, some supervisors are great with that, some aren't, but I think it's up to the employee. I've always said that if you don't own your career, no one will own it, because your supervisor has other people that they have to work with. They worry about their career as well. So if you don't own your career and own kind of your trajectory of what you think you want to do, no one's going to do that for you. So you have to be the one that is proactive. A mentor, once again, can be very helpful in helping you put together, how do I articulate this, and how do I say, this is what I want to do? And at the same time, who else should I talk to make sure that other people know this is what I aspire to do?
Yeah, thanks, Suzanne, for that question. I know I took away a lot because I'm personally going through that now, and you'll probably hear about that for folks that are in my breakout group a little bit more about that. But we are going to move into 3 different breakout groups, right? And Chelsea has already pre-assigned everyone, so you don't have to worry about going, oh no, don't leave everybody. People always leave with breakout groups, and that's where the spark just continues. But you'll be in 1 of 3 breakout groups: community engagement, company engagement, and industry engagement. So Chelsea is going to do her magic, and those will be led by Suzanne, Clayton, and myself. So we'll see you in those breakout groups.
And it's going to automatically push everyone. So get ready. We'll see you on the other side. Welcome back.
Hello.
How was the conversation, Suzanne?
Good, good. I think we got some really good comments.
Very cool. Everybody should be returning here within the next 20 seconds. All righty, welcome back, everyone. For the remaining, we've got about 10 minutes before we're going to close things down. Wanted to have Suzanne, Nick, and Clayton kind of share back what was shared out in each of the rooms, just some highlights so that everybody from the group can kind of glean on the information as you all grow your networks as a next step after this. So Suzanne, I'll go ahead and have you start.
Okay, great. So our group talked about industry networking, and a couple of the key takeaways I think that were shared were associations for your industry, whether it's at a local level, a state level, or a national level, are a great way to begin to engage and network from an industry perspective. You can learn so much about what's happening, how other companies do things, and you can really start to build your network from the ground up there. Also, if you're not sure from an association standpoint what you want to do, connecting with someone who's been around a while in your company to say, what would be a good organization for me to get engaged in, to understand, I think is really important. And it doesn't always have to be directly in your industry. It can be something that's associated with your industry as well. I think as well, if you can connect something that you do with something that's happening in your local community, that's a great way to get engaged as well. And we also talked about, what's important when you're in those situations. You go to a great event and you meet a lot of people. Then life happens and you don't, all of a sudden, all those great ideas you don't have time to follow up. So Tracy suggested, make sure you make those connections immediately after the event. So you have some connection and you can build that for the long term. I think finally, community engagement, more philanthropic type engagement that a lot of companies do is a great way to get started to expanding your network. And those are usually connected to the mission of your company. And those are also a great way to make connections. So I'll pass it over to maybe Nick.
Yeah, thanks, Suzanne. And my group, we talked a lot about company engagement and networking, right? So Ross, who I gave a cool nickname of RJ, is 10 years out from AFA now from his last undergrad experience. So he talked a lot about the importance of remaining connected with people that you worked with at your very first job, which I know I am horrible at doing that. But then we heard from Sarah, who's an HR manager who, most of her work is focused at a manufacturing plant, but now she's really intellectually curious to learn about other areas of the business and how the business works. So one thing that she shared with the group was start having those conversations with your leaders, and saying that you are interested in, different other opportunities as they come up. We heard from Allison, who said, number one, understand your purpose for networking. Are you creating connections for a current job or your next role? So have that purpose and intent behind networking. And then just two more, we heard from Kate from Missouri. And I think we all get that feeling, whether you are 10 years out or just beginning your career, but you feel siloed, right? But just keep thinking about that one person that's your go-to at work within your company that you typically ask questions to, right? After you get off a call with them, think about, or even ask them, hey, who should I be asking more questions to build that network? And one thing that Kate shared with us was that really sparks a lot of impromptu networking just right off the fly. And then one kind of call to action that I share with our group is just to carve out time for networking, right? You have 30 minutes maybe in a month. I know me, I dread going into the office 3, 4 days a week. But what really inspires me to go in is carving out that time every time I am in the office to network with somebody that I don't know. So I know I asked the team to do it 30 minutes each week, but I am going to challenge everyone on the call to just get to know people first, build that trust, and start setting aside 30 minutes to network once a month. And then once you feel comfortable and empowered, go to twice a month and see how it feels. So Clayton, what did your group talk about? Share some gems with
Yeah,
us.
so we got the community engagement, which was a really good conversation. I think probably our biggest takeaway that Carly kind of brought up based on some reading that she did and Selena followed up on, and also Betsy, is you got to be willing to put yourself out there. And community engagement is probably one of the toughest engagements to have, because you may move to a new area, you really have no connections, you don't know where to start, and you can't lean just on your professional connections. And so giving yourself the mental, like, yes, I'm going to do this, is a huge step. And that's the biggest hurdle that we've all kind of talked about. But once you get over that, there's a lot of different ways that everybody has found connectivity. And it's what I found really interesting is, from a local perspective, 4-H, local FFA chapters are still a big one. It's a big way for us to give back if we engaged in those as a student. And also there's a lot of need for coaches and judges and just volunteers around those. So that's a real easy way to get tied in. But also through those industry engagement opportunities. So obviously a lot of our companies participate in different holistic programs like Susanne talked about earlier. But then outside of that, going to your alumni chapter, working with them, local professional development groups that are not necessarily just ag focused, but it's all industry and it's a local type thing. Those are really big engagements. And then, completely outside is one, reconnecting with people from your past. Like we talked about, moving back to your hometown, folks that you've lost touch with for the past, 5-10 years, and just being willing to reach out to them and say, hey, you guys want to grab lunch or grab dinner? Let's grab a drink. Making those reconnections is something that's really resonated with the group as well. And then focusing outside of those things on some other is, volunteering from a local perspective on a non-for-profit or something very non-ag related at all, and just putting yourself out there. And Natalie was bringing up, she's found a lot of connections through yoga and going to the gym and just finding people that share common interest. And now she's running the New York Marathon, which all the kudos to her, because I could never do that. But there's just ways to find those connectivity and really, I mean, all the different places you wouldn't think about day to day. And it all goes back to just saying, yes, I'm going to put myself out there. I'm going to make that engagement opportunity happen.
Fantastic. Well, I think we have about 2 minutes left, honestly, if we wanted to go back to any of the questions in the chat, or if anybody wanted to come off mute and ask any follow-up questions to Susanne while we've got her, before we end around 12:55 with closing comments.
Hey, I think Eleanor has a really good question about the advice. Eleanor, did you want to share about having multiple passions? The question to Susanne? If not, I can read it for you. Yeah, so Eleanor's question was, Susanne, what advice do you have for those early in their career who have multiple passions?
Yeah, well, I think as you go through your career, you begin to learn what you like and don't like, and where you see the fit with your skills and your passions kind of coming together. And all through college, I was like, I'm going to be a finance person in an ag company. That's, I have an accounting degree and an ag econ degree, and that's what I was going to do. And, then I started doing that and I didn't really like it. And I think, trying roles and don't be afraid to do something that, you don't think that you have the skills to do. Those are kind of the two things. If you know you don't like something, only you can do something about it. I see people that don't really like the roles that they're in, but it's comfortable and they know how to do it. So they just stay there and they're not happy and they complain. And once again, they stay there because it's easy and they know it and there's no disruption. That's usually the worst thing you can do because we all have to work for a really long time. So you should like what you do. The other thing too is when you get an opportunity and someone says, "Hey, Suzanne, I want you to come into the seed business and license traits," which I got to do. Okay. And I didn't know anything about seeds or traits or licensing. And I was wondering, why do they want me to do this? Well, it was a great development opportunity for me and I learned a lot. So I said, don't ever be afraid to take something that's outside your comfort zone because that's a tremendous way to develop. And as you work, I think you do begin to learn what you like and don't like, and your passions are going to kind of lead you one way. And do what you're passionate about because you need to be excited to go to work every day, and maybe not, every day, 365 days a year, but most of them. And I'll go ahead, I think, and bring everything to a close if I can. So thank you all for attending. The fact that you're here and you're networking from an AFA perspective is great. So appreciate your attendance and just want to remind you that we have another Alliance Lunch Club coming up on September 27th with Russ Green, who's one of my fellow ambassadors. He's the operating officer of the Machinery Advisors Consortium and the managing director of McCabe. And his discussion will be titled, "How Well Do You Understand the 2023 Farm Bill?" The House and Senate Ag Committee will soon be voting on the new Farm Bill. And what do you need to know to stay current on the major issues in each of the titles? So I hope you can join us for a lively and educational discussion around the 23 Farm Bill before it goes to vote later this month. So Chelsea, I think you're going to send a sign up for it in the chat.
Yep, you can find it in the chat and then also in a follow-up email. We'll get that out today with all the ways you can stay engaged with AFA. Susanne, thank you so much for spending time with AFA this afternoon. I gained so much knowledge from your experience. So thank you so much and hope everyone has a great day. Also, thank you, Nick and Clayton, for volunteering as well.
Thank you all.
Thanks all.
Have a great holiday weekend.
Thanks, Susanne.
See ya.
Bye-bye.
All right. Take care, everybody.
Thanks all. Bye-bye.
Awesome. Thanks, Suzanne. Hope you have a great day.
Thank you.
All right, bye.